Hello and welcome to the Little Knowledge podcast, where myself, Paul Busby, and Goff Morgan have a chat basically about the tales and a little bit of the history about a property in our area. And that area has been old, historic Monmouthshire and Gwent, bits of Glamorgan. Twice we dipped our toe into Herefordshire, and this time only just we're peeking over into what is now Powys.
Oh my word, we're spreading our net,
It
Busby.
is
Spreading our
exotic, is
net.
what I call it. Exotic.
Exotic
These
poets.
far-flung places of which we know little.
Yeah. The mystic land of Powys, as it is in
It's
its
not
travel
that far
journal.
from Abergavenny when you think about it,
No,
mind, is
no,
it?
no.
That's what we're going to do. Glanusk. Do you know anything about Glanusk before we get started, Goff?
Other than there is a big alternative music festival at the site,
The
which
Green
happens
Man.
every year, and it's not far from Tretower Court where I worked, so it's in that area. So I know
Hmm.
that is the extent of my knowledge.
Well, this is very good. This is not going to be one of our great historical ones where we have tales from the Civil War. There is no chance that there will be a third Cradle of Henry V, for instance, because
Ah,
this is
damn it.
very much a 19th and early 20th century story. It's a historic estate basically built from scratch in the 19th century,
Oh, interesting.
but nonetheless
Yeah.
extremely interesting. So we'll start the way we nearly always do. We're going to have a look at where we are. So Crickhowell is here. So if we go south of Crickhowell,
Oh, yes,
we
just quick.
have Crickhowell's up here.
Yeah.
And south we find Glanusk Park. There
Ah,
it is.
yes, there we go.
Whopping great mansion you can see
Woo.
there. The Turpill Stone, which is now in the museum in Brecon, just sort of a memorial with a name on. That's very interesting. But there's also another stone over here in Penmearth, which also became part of the Glanusk estate. And indeed, it's where the family lived after the big house got too much trouble. There's another stone there. Can you see, Goff?
Yeah, I can. And there's a third one up just at the bottom called stones as well. What are all these stones floating around?
Well, I told you about the Turpill Stone, but this one is particularly interesting because it's by the
Yeah.
River Usk, of course, which runs through it.
Oh, of course, yes.
And it's the River Usk, and I shall show you what that stone is because I'm quite fond of it. It is the Fish Stone.
Oh,
Called the Fish Stone. It's got to be one of the tallest standing stones in Wales. It's 5.5 meters tall, which is about 18 foot.
yeah.
And it looks as if a fish has just
Oh,
jumped
yeah.
out of the River Usk and lodged itself
Yeah.
at Penmearth. And here's another picture of it. So it's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
gilly.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, it's like a little fin as well. It's at the bottom end there. Isn't that interesting?
It is like a little fin.
Yeah.
And there was a book called The Secret Country about folklore by Janet and Colin Board, who describes John Williams's experience at the stone. Now, John Williams was a relatively locally well-known dowser from Abergavenny.
Ah, ha,
The
ha, ha.
Abergavenny dowser. Well, he bit off
And,
more than he could chew when he entered towards the fish stone, because
oh.
it was said that as soon as he touched it, he felt a spiral in force building up in his body as he touched the stone, whereupon he was thrown forcibly backwards. The
Well,
fish stone,
well.
everybody.
Well, well, well. That's interesting.
I should point out at this point, this is on private land. However,
Yeah.
if you want to see it, you get in touch with the Glanusk office, and they're always very helpful with that sort of thing. I'm sure they'll let you see it. So if you want to try what Mr. Williams of Abergavenny tried, get in touch with the Glanusk Estate Office
Oh, I have,
first.
a bit of a dowsing man myself. I know how to do these various bits and bobs. I've had odd moments in stone circles myself with my pendulums going crazy, crazy.
And what did you make your dowsing rods out of, Goff?
Oh, coat hangers. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it worked.
I did. I used to give dowsing sort of practice lessons up in the attics of Tredegar House. Remember one of in the ghost tours we used to do.
I remember it
City
well.
was there, yeah, and that was good.
I
Yeah,
remember it well.
very interesting. The this sort of thing. I don't know what it is, but it's intriguing. Yeah.
Well, if they created Glanusk Park essentially as an historic sort of estate or a new estate by scratch, was there anything on the site beforehand? Well, there was. Closer to the river, there was a Glanusk. There was a Glanusk farm. We know in 1745 that the Turbervilles were linked to. The Turbervilles have come up on this podcast in the past. And there's also this, when we get into the 19th century, early 19th century, 1812, the beautiful residence and estate of Glanusk, situated on the banks of the River Usk, 1 mile. And it's not massive. I mean, you get it for the fishing more than anything else. It's got an entrance hall, 4 sitting rooms, 5 bedrooms, and 6 servants' rooms, perfectly furnished. So it's a nice place.
Yeah.
It's a nice place, but it wasn't big enough.
Gentry as opposed to aristocracy.
Absolutely. But the man who bought the Glanusk estate in 1825 had bigger ambitions. His name was Joseph Bailey.
Yeah.
And he was the one, the Baileys have come up on this podcast before. He was the one who was a young man. He headed off to meet his uncle Crawshay at Cyfarthfa Ironworks. And there's the painting by Penry Williams.
Yeah.
So he heads off. He walks from Wakefield to Merthyr to meet his uncle at Cyfarthfa, and he learns the trade. Puts an awful lot into it. He gets left a portion of the Cyfarthfa works. He eventually sells it to William Crawshay for £20,000. Big sum. I mean, we are still in the early 19th century here. He builds Nantiglow House. He runs the Nantiglow Ironworks. And then, whereas the Crawshays, anyone who's learned about Cyfarthfa Castle will know, the Crawshays stayed in industry pretty much, didn't they?
Yes.
But Joseph Bailey withdrew from industry. And he decided that he actually wanted to become a county gentleman and get involved in politics.
Oh, blimey.
So he withdrew from the business. He was looking for a house. There's a wonderful description by Lady Charlotte Guest of Joseph Bailey, which was a little cruel. She says, Mr. Bailey's low-born, purse-proud, cunning. I mean, that's pretty harsh, quite frankly.
A little harsh,
Mr. Bailey's low-born, purse-proud, cunning. And a later Lady Glanusk described him as obviously a brute who disinherited 2 of his sons.
Oh, God.
The later members of the family are being a bit harsh, but Joseph Bailey worked extraordinarily hard, obviously.
Yeah.
So how do you get involved in politics? If you've come from outside, it's not so much money, it's how much land you own in the county. That's what gets you on. How much land do you own in the county? So he starts buying land. Quite a lot of land. In fact, he buys Penmearth, he buys Peterstone Court, he buys Trebariad, he buys Pembridge Castle, he buys Hay Castle, he buys Easton Court, he buys Llangoed Castle, at least 8 or 9 gentry homes, and by the time he's finished his spending spree, he owns 28,000 acres of Brecconshire. Thus making him the second largest landowner in Brecconshire, second only behind Sir Charles Morgan.
Oh gosh, that's pretty good going.
Pretty impressive stuff. But he needs somewhere to live. So he buys this Glanusk property. He knocks down the little pleasant house we described. It was too close, you see, to the river, so he knocks it down. And he gets Mr. Luger, Richard Luger, who was the architect behind Cyfarthfa Court. He gets him to build a new place, and that was called Glanusk Park. And as you can see, it's of a very much bigger scale.
Oh, that's a lot more like it, isn't it, if you've got ambitions in that line?
This is more like it.
Like it, yeah.
It's a neo sort of Elizabethan, sort of with bits of Gothic involved, really.
Yeah.
Lots. In fact, they had one room which was full of new Elizabethan furniture. So new furniture he had commissioned in the Elizabethan style. And when you see the place in its setting, you can see how actually grand Joseph Bailey's creation actually was.
Yeah.
And that is quite something, isn't it?
Pretty good.
I like all that land.
The turrets are particularly effective. I'm a fan of the turrets.
The turrets are very effective, I agree. He also built a little tower bridge sort of thing over the Usk. There it is. Oh. That was a lodge. Oh, cool. Little lodge over the Usk. But I want to go back to this one because did it work? Did Joseph Bailey get on in politics? Well, he tried pretty hard. He eventually became MP for Worcester, and it cost him £16,000 to become MP. He worked out. We forget how brutal and expensive political campaigns could be back then.
Oh yeah, you essentially bought your way in
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
eventually.
bribery
Oh, a
going
lot of
on.
bribery, a lot of dealing. You'd pop in and say, "Oh well, you owe me the money for that land. We'll write that off." If you pass, but you've obviously no pressure. But
Yeah,
what can we do that? They used to make deals with local pub landlords about, opening at a certain time, giving them extra hours, 'cause a lot of them were JPs and all that sort of stuff. Oh, yeah, it was a complete graft, basically, at this point.
oh,
Yeah, not what we
absolutely.
would, yeah.
It didn't always work. His eldest son, Joseph Bailey Jr., stood for Monmouthshire boroughs against Benjamin Hall in 1835, and he lost. And the winning side accused him of bribery because apparently he'd bribed 200 voters and only 164 voted for him. So a mixed success at the old bribery. It has to be said that Benjamin Hall's campaign was almost certainly doing exactly the same thing.
Oh,
but
absolutely, yeah,
more
they did. None
effectively.
of them were perfect. They all did the same stuff, yeah. That was the same stunt, yeah.
Now, Bailey Jr. eventually did become MP for Sudbury, and he predeceased his father. He died at the age of 38, Junior, so he never
Oh,
became.
right. Yeah.
And they said that the people of Brecon took great offence when he didn't win the Monmouthshire borough seat in this bribery accusation. It does remind me, actually, of Nixon v. Kennedy in 1960,
Oh,
when it was quite clear that the Kennedy campaign had, shall we say, cheated a little in Chicago and Illinois with the help of Sam Giancana and local friends, shall we say.
yeah.
It was clear that they had, but because Nixon had been dodgy in other places, they eventually decided that the Kennedy stole it fair and square. And I think that's what Welsh politics was in the first half of the
Yeah, yeah,
19th century. I think you could sometimes say, all right, they stole it fair and square because everyone was doing it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but the
Honestly
Brecon,
cheated, yeah.
yeah, but the Brecconshire people were furious. There was actually a campaign for Brecconshire people to boycott Newport goods over this.
Oh, blimey, that's pretty solid.
They blamed the town of
Yeah.
Newport and shenanigans there for Bailey Jr., their son or adopted son,
Yeah.
failing to win. But I don't know. His dad, however, Joseph Bailey, was a big fan of the Duke of Wellington. He got John Evans Thomas to do a statue of the Duke of Wellington, which is now in a barracks in London. And Mr. Briggs, the artist, was staying at Glanusk with Joseph Bailey. And he told Joseph Bailey, "Oh, I've had another message from the Duke of Wellington. He wants me to go and paint him. I'm not this time." And Joseph Bailey said, "Well, why not? It's his hero. Why not?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I've been summoned about 5 or 6 times, and I get there, presumably Apsley House,
Yeah.
and then the Duke can't see me, and I'm not going." So
Oh.
Joseph Bailey was said, "Well, you're not staying here. If the Iron Duke is summoning you, my hero, you are going."
Oh, God.
Eventually, the Duke of Wellington heard about this. The painting was done, and he sent a painting of himself to Glanusk Park as thanks for getting the
Oh, right.
artist
Oh,
to
gosh.
paint the painting. I think it did work for Joseph Bailey in the end. By the way, he built a chapel, a church on the estate in 1852, where all his ancestors for centuries will be buried. It's that kind of idea.
Yeah.
He was made a baronet in 1852. That's a little bump up, isn't it? So he became Sir Joseph Bailey. He became MP for Brecconshire between 1847 and 1858. And in fact, when he died in 1858, the man who replaced him was Godfrey Morgan as MP for Brecconshire.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Chap who became second Lord Radiga.
That's right. And when he died, Sir Joseph Bailey, his will was 222 folios long.
Whoa!
He had a lot of money. They worked out that he left, because remember, he started with absolutely nothing as a boy who had to walk all the way to Merthyr from Wakefield. In present-day money, he left what will be pretty close to £40 million. Present-day terms.
Isn't it?
So whether he was, this, as they said, this purse-proud cunning of low birth and a brute, he certainly did very well, didn't he?
Well, quite, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Certainly did.
The 19th century is a period of these of self-made men who were generally looked down upon by the old money.
Oh, yeah.
But they were massively looked down upon because they came from sort of not the right stock, shall we say. But some of them, he's up there with all the major sort of entrepreneurs of the period, really.
Oh, absolutely. One of the great, was they one of
Yeah,
the great iron masters who then sort of gave it up to become a very successful politician, I suppose you could
yeah,
say.
yes. That's fascinating, isn't it?
Hmm. Well, when he died, as I said, Junior had predeceased him. So eventually his grandson took over. Here he is in later years, painted by John Collier. This is J.R. Bailey. Fortunately, he was never shot. J.R. Bailey, who was MP for Hereford, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, by now they own land in Herefordshire as well. You know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
estate was not just Brecconshire; it had sort of seeped over. J.R. Bailey had married a local doctor's daughter from Crickhowell called Mary Lucas, so it suggests there was a bit of a love match
Yeah.
going on there. And he fitted perfectly in society, really. Chair of the Llangattock School Board. As a politician and MP, he actually did quite a bit of work. He was on the committee responsible for the Manchester Ship Canal and for Barry Docks, so he was actually an effective
Yeah.
politician, J.R. Bailey, in his early days. He was on the Crickhowell Board of Guardians for 37 years, so he did the legwork, and was Lord Lieutenant of Brecconshire when on the death of the first Lord Tredegar. So they've now got the Lord Lieutenant. So they've moved up
Yeah.
again, haven't they?
Yeah.
Got the MP, Baronet, Lord Lieutenant of Brecconshire. He does pretty well. And there are all kinds of things on the estate. There's archery, cricket starts on the estate, and it begins to get sort of thrown open a bit more. He has a very large staff, which you can see here
Oh, good heavens.
in the late 19th century.
Hello.
It's a big estate.
Yeah.
Glanusk is a big estate.
Well, that's far more than your 6 bedrooms for servants from the property that started off at the beginning of the 1800s, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean they're still very much Glanusk is a fishing estate because
Right.
you've got the River Usk is still close, but not quite as close as it used to be when it was that little one, that
Yeah.
smaller version. So yeah, he does his job. And in the 1870s, 1876 to be precise, something happens, doesn't it, Goff, that people remember from this particular period of J.R. Bailey.
Yeah. This is a very intriguing little thing, this bit. So this is one of the true crime moments, which I quite like to do in this part of the prog.
Hmm.
Yes, murderous poaching affray. That is the headline in the paper of the day. Murderous poaching affray. Poaching was a big property, but a big problem on this property. So they were always constantly they had lots of little copses and spinneys and people creeping around at night, and there was rabbiting going on. There were people shooting the pheasants. It was a very busy estate. So obviously they had gamekeepers and various keepers. So what actually happens is this. It says, if I read you a little bit from it. On Saturday morning last, a desperate poaching affray took place on the outskirts of a wood near a place called Dunvant, distant from Crickhowell about 3 miles, which resulted fatally to one of Sir Joseph Bailey's keepers named King. The deceased and another keeper named Hooper were out about 3 o'clock when they heard some shots. They immediately separated with the intention of either discovering or capturing the poachers. In a short time, Hooper heard firing, and it seemed the poachers told King to stand back or they would fire, and as the keepers did not stand back, one of the poachers fired. King then cried out that he was shot. Hooper went to him and found him lying on the ground. The wounded man, it is stated, said that he felt he was dying and asked Hooper to stay with him. The unfortunate man died in the course of an hour. They go into excruciating details of the nature of the injury, and even the sort of autopsy on the injury. Because you know what the papers were like at this time for
Oh yeah.
sensationalism. I mean, it's really, you're looking at sort of their literary version of something like, pathological crime, forensic crime. But yeah, no, he was shot very badly. A lot of the pellets, over 80 pellets and wounds actually struck the body, but it severed an artery in the groin, so he died within about an hour of it. He said the shot had entered the right groin and completely riddled it. Again, this is interesting because it shows that whoever fired the gun, particularly as it's a shotgun, had to be quite close to him. Even the doctor at the inquest says that it had to be fired at very, very close range for basically the scatter of the pellets to be so focused in one area. Because as you know, with the shotgun, the further away you are, the more spread out the pellets actually become from the shotgun. So he was shot at quite close quarter, which, by indication, makes you think he could possibly know who did it. We'll come back to that later on. It said King had been in Joseph's employ for 7 years. He leaves a wife and 8 children, 6 of whom are very young and entirely dependent. The poachers are said to be 3 in number. The affair has created the utmost consternation and terror in the neighbourhood. How many times have we heard that phrase? As soon as anything happens, they're in utmost terror and consternation. Actually, they're all having a wild time. They're enjoying it. The usual happens here. The day after the incident, the entire place is flooded by ghoulish sightseers who trample all over the site as always. So the chance of finding out exactly what went on with it, you had absolutely no idea. Eventually, they arrest somebody as a suspect for this case. And the chap they arrest is a chap called John Watkins, who is a tenant farmer of the Bailey's estate. Let me just check down the exact name again. Yeah, a tenant farmer named Watkins paying a rental of £90 per year. Now, that's a significant
It is. It was a good farm then.
rental. So he must have been, he's not a sort of subsistence farmer. He's doing terribly well for himself, And so to be able to afford that rent, that's not counting the money that he's made in profit from it. So he gets arrested. The police are taken before the magistrates on the Tuesday, and then they go on to give an inquest. They call him before the inquest. He's defended by a solicitor from Abergavenny called Farquhar, which is a wonderful, wonderful name to try.
Farquhar of Abergavenny.
Farquhar of Abergavenny. That's a series of crime novels in his own name has ended. Yeah. It's a messy little thing, this. It's a messy little case. They arrest him really on suspicion. There is no evidence to actually support this at all, really, the arrest. The reason he's suspected of it is that he's basically there's an animosity between him and King, the head gamekeeper. Because at one point King dobs him in for shooting a pheasant, and he gets taken to court for shooting a pheasant, which then the court case collapses. So evidently there wasn't sufficient evidence for this. King is always convinced that he's on their property in the copse that separates them from the tenant farm. In fact, the copse where King dies is only about 350 yards away from where Watkins lives. So later on, again, he's caught ferreting, and they're going to do him for that. But he owns up to Bailey and says, "No, I did. Yes, I did do it. Yeah, I'm terribly sorry about that." So Bailey just sort of lets him off rather than taking him to court for it, which is again quite an interesting response, really. And at that point, Bailey discovers that there is, they said, this animosity between the two of them. Watkins is convinced that King, the gamekeeper, is constantly looking out for him, constantly trying to trap him in something and do something about it, Now, when you get to the night, the night of the incident, one of the best sort of descriptions comes from the under gamekeeper, a chap called Philip Hooper, and he tells really what's happening, because obviously everybody else has gone. So Hooper had only actually been working for the estate for 3 weeks when this happens.
Welcome to your job.
Welcome to your job, yeah. They know what's going on. They know that there's trouble with poachers. King decides to go to bed and says to Hooper that if anything happens, he has to call me up. Now, this is a lovely, interesting phrase. Because if we call someone up, that means we ring them on the phone. They weren't phones. They basically stood at the bottom of the stairs and called up it. To wake them up. So they called them up. He were called up. So here he goes to bed. A couple of later, they hear shots coming from from the estate. He calls King up. King comes up. They actually, for some reason, gets dressed outside the house. I don't know why that. He puts his clothes on outside the house. While they're doing that, they hear a third shot. They've heard 2 already. There's a 4th shot as they're going from the house. So something is seriously going on over towards the Llangunada side of the cover. When they eventually get there, there are two shots fired in quite rapid succession, and they separate. They decide to go separate ways, not provide one target, basically. Hooper goes off hoping to head them off as he actually, if King fires at them and they try to flee, so he tries to catch them as they're going. But of course, as he's going up there, you get a terrible, series of shots fired. Now, this is where you get the idea that they were warned, and he says, "Don't go, or we'll shoot." That doesn't crop up at all in Hooper's deposition. He doesn't say at any point that King warned them to go or he would shoot them or anything. So where that comes from in the reporting, I've no idea. It's not in this very detailed evidence of the inquest. All he says is the men who shot us were in the field at the opposite side of the cover. The first shot was followed by two others in rapid succession. The first shot struck the deceased in the legs. We were walking side by side. Three men then made a rush across the corner of the field into cover. The deceased fired two shots at them, and I followed with the same number. We could have shot the men dead if we wished, but we only wanted to frighten them. I got over the fence into the cover and fired two other shots. This is a real gun battle, isn't it? The deceased asked me if I had received any shots, and I told him no. He then informed me that he had been shot very badly about the legs and asked me to go to Crick Howell's side of the cover and said that he would go himself to the right-hand side of the cover. He's obviously still walking at this point. When I got over the hedge from the road towards my point, I saw and heard another shot fired. I was 10 yards from the hedge. I heard the shot in my direction, where about 30 yards further off, I heard three more shots fired, and King called out to me, "Hooper, my dear man." Oops, up at the top of the page. "Hooper, my dear man, come here, I am shot." The three shots were fired before King called me out. He called out again, "You come here, I am dying." I went back, and I went back the way I had come and said to him, and he said, "I am a dying man." He was then lying on his side with his face towards the cover with his gun in front of him. He wraps him up. He tries to make sure get him comfortable. He realizes that the bleeding is quite terrible. Now, this is when it gets complicated, because they go off to the farm of Watkins, a chap called John Williams, another person from Abergavenny. Another chap gets involved, and they send him off to Watkins' house to get the trap, to basically so they can take him to a doctor's or get him back home and get a doctor to him. And then it gets complicated, because King apparently says, go to Watkins. And then according to later somebody says, go to Watkins, but I doubt he will come. And then it gets elaborated into, go to Watkins, I doubt he will come because he shot me.
Oh dear.
I don't think that's what was said at all, actually. I think it gets elaborated. The implication is this. Now, Watkins lives, again, only 350 yards from the site of this crime. Williams turns up, calls up, saying, "Can we have the cart?" Mrs. Watkins leans out the window. No, doesn't lean out the window. They hear her shouting through the window, going, "No, we can't get it." And then they hear Watkins say, "No, we can't come. The trap's broken." But he doesn't see them at all. He just hears them. So he goes back. Eventually, they get another cart. They pick it up. And eventually, by the time they get there, they're reeling him back. He's died on the cart. And the doctor they've sent for actually meets them and he said that he's dead by the time they get there. Send for Watkins. I am certain he will come. Really very, very interesting. Now, they get through all of this case. They run through it all very clearly as to what happens. Watkins is in there. They have a huge argument about whether what type of leggings he's wearing. Is he ever wearing leggings? Have you seen him in breeches? And they get massively obsessed with the guy's trousers. The sole identification for Watkins from Hooper comes from the fact he claims he recognises his voice, even though he's only ever heard it at a distance, talking to cows.
All right.
So it's really not a good thing. The three poachers that they saw running into the woods all had blackened faces. And again, are you really going to be able to, in that gun battle that we heard raging going on there, able to identify one voice in the distance? Or are you simply leaping to a conclusion that this is what may have been happened? Williams as well also sort of days it into it. So Mr. Farquhar, who's defending Watkins, He goes into infinite, minute detail about, his trousers and who sees it. Eventually, he meets Williams. His wife says, "Oh yes, I saw him. He was wearing a pair of corduroy trousers and a black coat." Oh, right. Oh, so that's like, oh, it's almost an O.J. Simpson glove moment. He's got his cord trousers, not his other trousers. But then they call Watkins' defense is that he was in bed. He was asleep at the time. He was in bed. His wife says the same thing. They eventually called the children. It was someone who was sharing the bed as well, one of his daughters, who was after they tested to make sure that she knows right from wrong. She also said that she was in bed with her father at the time. Now, at some point, shortly after this incident was happened, Watkins is seen walking around with his face bandaged, with a shot in it claiming to have had toothache. However, there is no external mark on the face when he gets to the inquest, which is literally a matter of days later. So, he probably did have toothache. So eventually, he is acquitted. He doesn't go to trial. He's not acquitted. Farquhar at one point says, "So he will walk free from this court without a stain on his character." At which point the coroner went, "Well, I didn't actually say that, Mr. Farquhar. What I said was he is acquitted," and left it at that. So again, this suspicion hung over Watkins for the rest of his life. Eventually, he left the country. He went to America, I think, you told me, get out of it. So this is a very intriguing little thing. Now, did Watkins do it? On the balance of what I've read about in various statements of case to this, I would say no, he probably didn't do it. One of the main key factors for that, another O.J. Simpson's glove moment, is they found his gun in the house and it was going rusty and hadn't been fired for months. However, doesn't mean you didn't shoot with somebody else's gun.
No.
So that was held as evidence he hadn't done it because his gun was rusty and not treated. And there is a little question which nobody questions at all in any of the documentation. And that is, why does Watkins and his wife, why do neither of them come to the window? Someone is at the bottom shouting up to them, and they're shouting from inside the room and not coming to the window. A less charitable man than I, perchance, might say his face is covered in blacking and they haven't got it all off yet.
Possibly, yeah.
So it's a possibility.
That still doesn't mean he was the one who fired the shot that killed the man.
No, you cannot. I think there is no evidence to support the fact that he shot him. However, there is more than a hint of suspicion that he was definitely involved with the two other guys that did. Someone in later years on the death, most have made a deathbed confession that they had actually done it. I can't track down the name for who's supposed to have done that.
Right.
But who knows? Suffice to say, it's an unsolved case. The murder of King, the gamekeeper, of Sir J.R. Bailey.
It's an interesting one, though, isn't it?
It is. It's intriguing.
But it is also interesting.
I'm very suspicious of the not coming to the window bit.
Yeah. We've seen so many instances of people being sort of sent down for very little evidence that it's quite refreshing an acquittal. There was a similar acquittal when a tragic accident happened nearby, in not so long before or after that, I forget it. A 15-year-old was showing off to a 15-year-old maid. And I think it was Glanusk Home Farm. And he said, I shoot rabbits. And that's the gun. And he pointed to a gun on the wall, took it off, cocked it, the gun went off and killed the maid instantly.
Oh my gosh.
Because he was arrested, horrified, but they acquitted him because they said, well, the gun should not have been stored loaded. They didn't even do him for manslaughter. Oh, God. That's the 15-year-old, well, his life continued, but of course the poor girl did not. So again...
It was an accident. It was accidental death. Yeah.
It was an accidental death, yeah.
Yeah. It is refreshing when you write sometimes the court cases because they are quite... Yes. They will string you up and convict you on the flimsiest of evidence in the 19th century.
Yeah.
See this.
Quite refreshing. Okay, so Glanusk is all very nice. They're all there in sort of high society. They've got some nice bits with this. I like this. The Spider's Web Gate at Glanusk Park. Isn't that lovely?
It is, isn't it?
The spider...
But it's still there.
No, it isn't.
Oh,
Because I can tell you why it isn't there, because the garden it leads into isn't there either, because the garden was called the Garden of Eden.
oh, right.
All very nice.
Yeah.
So you've got this great escape, J.R. Bailey. You've got all of this great estate. It's all very pleasant. So what you really need now to bump you up even further, what would look good on the old aspiring aristocrat CV is a royal visit. That'll be useful.
Always
Have a
handy.
member of the royal family in there. Why not? And in 1890, that's what happened. And here we've got, they're all setting up in the nearby town for this chap.
Oh, Prince Albert Victor. Yeah.
Oh, yes. The
Oh,
king we
yeah.
never had, the
Yeah.
eldest son of the future Edward VII. He was the Duke of Clarence and Avondale, and
Yeah.
that is why Crickhowell has a Clarence Hall to this day, because he opened it when he
Oh,
was there.
right.
But it was up to J.R. Bailey to arrange this royal visit, and it was a nightmare. I mean, everything had to be, perfect. And he worked so hard on this, J.R. Bailey did. He really did work hard on it. And one of the things he wanted to do was he wanted almost to have cameras fitted all around so he could capture the great moment. So we had cameras on, is a camera on the horse and barouche, the horse and
Oh,
carriage as
yeah.
it was, wasn't a barouche, but horse and carriage that was
Yeah.
going through. And typically, when you set something up with cameras, even back then, his plans, he wouldn't have done well on Instagram. It failed miserably. There was only one photo that vaguely worked, and it didn't involve the prince in any of it. So they are trying. But yeah, this is an intriguing royal, isn't it? Prince
Yeah.
Albert
Yeah.
Victor.
He's a complicated character. He had a very, very suspicious private life.
Did
He was well, he was definitely bisexual, if not leaning more towards gay than bisexual. He frequented lots of houses of disrepute within London and at various
possibly in Cleveland
societies.
Street.
Possibly the dreaded Cleveland Street, yes, as well. And of course, he was one of the principal sort of suspects for the royal cover-up of the Ripper in
Yes.
Stephen Knight's totally pointless
The
book.
fantasist's
Lovely story, but
favourite
that's a
Jack the
fantasy.
Ripper
Yeah,
suspect is Prince
the
Albert Victor.
fantasist's favourite top candidate for why
Yeah.
the royal doctor William Gull is bumping off
Yeah.
the Ripper victim, one of whom was supposed to be carrying Eddie's child. It didn't happen. But again, he left as a notorious figure because of that. To be perfectly honest, there was enough notorious about him without that to make it interesting.
Of course.
He was much more a sort of Edward the Seventh figure.
Mm.
In a way, his approach to life. He certainly wasn't as respectable as his father or mother wanted
No.
to be.
But he did stay at Glanusk Park, so we can tick off a royal stay in there. He went canoeing in the River Usk, which Sir J.R. Bailey sorted out for him. And it's something that J.R. Bailey owned as well, which was rather nice. And if you buy, Goff, just bear this in mind, if you buy an estate with a gentry house, have a rifle around in the attics, all right? Because you're not sure what you might find. Because J.R.'s granddad, Sir Joseph Bailey, when he was buying all of these manor houses and all of this land in a frenzy of spending to put together this great estate, bought this place. It's Trebariad in Breconshire. Trebariad, it will be interesting for anyone interested in Tredegar House, because on the Edney Gates there's JMM, John and Martha Morgan. Well, she was Martha Vaughan from this house, Trebariad. So it was a Vaughan property.
Yeah.
The Baileys bought it, and when they went up into the attic, so the story goes, they found a few things that had been left there, including this book. So the book was opened, and it was a first folio.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, well.
1623. And this plays into the wonderful little, without much evidence to it, theory about William Shakespeare in this part of the country. That he might have been in the area when he was writing A Midsummer Night's Dream. So the fact that one of his first folios turns up in a gentry house of the period, there are older bits of Trebariad. It just plays into that wonderful little.
It's an interesting little story. It's an interesting little story because there is a basic. Well, he was friends with a guy in Abergavenny area. But one of the things that makes it interesting is that they say that the fairy characters within Midsummer Night's Dream are not strictly English folklore fairies. They are much more like Welsh and Celtic folklore fairies.
Mm.
So they suggest that he got a lot of his fairy input for Midsummer Night's Dream from it, from this area, from the area of Abergavenny area and that area. Um, Intriguing, interesting,
Yeah.
utterly unprovable,
Well,
probably,
it's but we do
but
what
interesting.
ifs on this podcast, don't we?
Oh
That's what we
yeah,
do. We chat about things.
this is
Like,
a little bit more. Whether he wrote it here or not. I mean, that is probably a no. But whether it's some of his source inspiration for the fairy elements of Midsummer Night's Dream came from this area, not impossible.
no, you never know. Well, they did lovely thing to find in an attic, isn't it?
Yeah.
In 1913, the Baileys sold it for about £970. So it's no longer in the Bailey family. Um, but the estate was going quite nicely, and they managed to, in 1899, get the peerage. So
Ah,
JR became the first Baron Glanusk.
yeah,
So Lord Glanusk's title was born, and that really bumps you up. I mean, you can
yeah.
even tell from the press coverage. If you're a baronet, that's one thing. If you become a peer of the realm, you're in a completely different strata back then.
Yeah.
You really are. Lord Glanusk did not really please Lord Glanusk.
Oh, yes, God, yes.
Lord Glanusk, who was a newspaper proprietor, said, "Oh, don't take the name Lord Glanusk. Take Lord Bailey of somewhere, because our mail is going to be messed up. In the
Yeah.
newspapers, it's all going to be mixing us up." And sure enough, that did
Yeah, quite,
happen.
yeah. Bound to, isn't it? A
But the,
shocking inevitability to it all.
but the first Baron Glanusk, first Lord Glanusk, did die in 1906. He had diabetes, and that developed, and then he died at the age of 65,
Oh,
meaning he
gosh.
was succeeded by my favourite Bailey of them all. There he is. What a fine fellow. Another Joseph. So, without being disrespectful, I'm going to use the name he was known by in the Grenadier Guards, and
Yeah.
that was Jonah.
Jonah?
Jonah Bailey. He was known as a young man in the Grenadiers. Yeah, he went
That's
to
not an
Eton.
auspicious name. Why was he called Jonah?
I have never found out. Maybe someone will let us know.
Hmm.
But because he was also another Joseph, I'm going to refer to him as Jonah, the second
Hmm.
Lord Glanusk. He was captain of the Eton. You know when you peak early in your life? He was the captain of the Eton football team, and he said, "I've never felt so big since." Doesn't matter that he's now got a peerage. Now it's just, he went to Sandhurst Grenadier Guards. This is where we get to the tall Baileys. They are quite tall. To get in the Grenadier Guards, you had to be over 6'2" tall.
Oh, right.
So Jonah was pretty good there. He later served in the Boer War as part of the City of London Imperial Volunteers, and voluntary military is something he was a big supporter of.
Hmm.
In the Boer War, he won the DSO. He was mentioned in dispatches, and both Lord Roberts and Lord Kitchener said nice things about his martial prowess
Oh,
as a
good.
young man. So not bad.
No.
Also, he was a big game hunter in Uganda. He loved Uganda. So he did. He was well traveled, this
Yeah,
man.
telling me, yeah.
But he had to begin selling off the outlying estate properties.
Hmm.
So you're starting to get the first impositions of death duties,
Yeah.
now starting to hit the Glanusk estate. He defended being a lord. Now, when the people's budget happened, and he said, I have to defend being a lord. I can't help being a blooming lord. It wasn't my choice, Jonah said. He was very, very big pro-Welsh, and he was very, very big pro-Breconshire in particular.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because you can see
Um,
they've got the Welsh flag in the background
he
there.
has the Welsh flag, and he was involved in the Scout movement. And you can see him here in later life. He was the chief commissioner for Wales for the Scouts. He thought it was a healthy life, very
Yeah.
healthy life being a Boy Scout. And here he is in later life, doing his scouting business with the future Edward VIII,
Oh,
Duke
yes.
of
Yeah.
Windsor, who did become the second royal to stay at
Yeah.
Glanusk Park in later years. So we got a future king to go with Albert Victor, so we can tick that off the list as well.
Hmm.
All very nice. But the scouting movement, he did like to, as he always said, Jonah, I do like to play the game. And play
Yeah.
the game meant take on life, play by the rules, but always play to win if you possibly could.
Yeah.
And he did that in 1910. We're at Bailey Park. Now, Bailey Park was where one of his cousins, Crawshay Bailey of Mayndiff Court, who we did a
Yeah.
podcast mentioning, gave Bailey Park. And the Monmouthshire Scouts were at Bailey Park in 1910. So what Jonah decided to do was shake him up a bit. So this is how the newspapers report what Jonah's great plan was. There are 400 Monmouthshire Scouts in Bailey Park in Abergavenny, led by Colonel Bradney. So they've got officers there. It's all very... So this is what happens, okay?
Yeah.
The Brecconshire Scouts, under the leadership of Lord Glanusk, arrived in Abergavenny at about 9:50 p.m. in two very large motor cars, and having left the cars a long distance from the camp, proceeded to attack the camp. Finding the main gate of the park left open and unprotected, they entered in a body, and within 5 minutes of their arrival in the town, they'd overcome the solitary guard and rushed the officers' headquarters and captured Colonel Bradney and one of his staff officers. The other portion rushed around the camp and placed rockets on the ground and discharged them. Jonah thought that it would be a good lesson for the for the Monmouthshire Scouts being attacked in the night time.
That'll teach them.
You got that Brecconshire Monmouthshire rivalry, which probably started with his ancestors, which is still going on, it seems to me. So an interesting thing. He was always getting... He heard there was a fire nearby, so he got in his car with a hose and rocketed off to try and put it out.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, Jonah did have that kind of spirit.
Yeah.
When the Great War came along, he was, of course, of advanced age.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really at the front. Nevertheless, he took part. He was the commanding officer of the 1st Brecconshire Battalion, Volunteer Brigade of the South Wales Borderers, and he went off to Arden and India. And he served out there. And he looks very happy with his men, you can see there.
Oh, yeah.
Very happy with his men.
Yeah.
Now, his wife, who I haven't mentioned yet, who was... her name in society was Bunty.
Oh.
Editha was actually her name, but Bunty. So Jonah and Bunty. Very tall lady. She could skate and dance in her younger days. But she had her own role. When her husband is out in India, doing his bit out there, she gets a bit more dramatic back home, because this is what she does.
Yeah.
Oh, first of all, Lady Glanusk as a spy catcher.
What? How her ladyship spies on spies.
Yes. She decided that the whole country must be positively teeming with German spies. She set out to catch them.
Yeah.
With the Duchess of Beaufort and others joining her organisation, they decided to try to catch spies. As you can see, mixed success.
Yeah.
But spies adopt disguises was proved to our satisfaction in a case that was brought to our notice in London. It was told us that a man living at a certain address was regarded with suspicion by some of his neighbours. We set a watch for 3 nights. On the first night, he came out dressed as a soldier in khaki. On the second, a clergyman. On the third, as a blue jacket. There claimed he was something very suspicious about such a man, and we left the police to deal with him. Women very good at spying, says Lady Glanusk.
Yeah.
She also did some extremely good work with the Red Cross in the county. She was never going to be a huge spy catcher. She also gave a warning for waiters as well. She was worried about waiters after the war, so she had vision.
Yeah.
She said, well, at the moment, all the German waiters that were in London before the war have gone off. And now they're filled up with proper British waiters. Now, after the war, we're going to be teeming with German and French waiters. This is what you must do, British waiters, to see them off and keep your job. I mean, she had vision, but I'm sure sometimes she was thinking about things that no one else in the world was. She did have, but she had the same problem as any other mother in the Great War, and that's what's happening with my husband.
Yeah.
Well, her husband was absolutely fine. The husband was actually out in India and started painting everyone. He was quite artistic, Jonah. Started painting. Anyone who walked near him, he painted as far as I could see, and then sent it home and told the local newspaper to sell it off for charity, for the war charity.
Good.
Well, I don't know how many, I've never seen one of these paintings. Then he started writing poetry and sending that off and hoping that that could somehow be sold off. So he became very artistic, Jonah, when he got out there. Although he did kind of spoil that sort of thing by, in later years, when somebody said they thought the Scout movement was militaristic. Remember, this is a man who literally attacked another Scout movement.
Yeah.
And Jonah did say, I will box anyone 3 rounds if they
Yeah.
say it's militaristic. So if they say it's violent, you will violently pummel them. Well done, Jonah.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I shall beat up anyone that says we're beating people up.
But of course, they were both very concerned about their children. They had 3 boys and 1 girl. The girl, Dulcie, became, as she put it, a sort of military chauffeur and drove very well.
Oh,
Dulcie.
right.
The others signed up. This is their eldest son and heir, Wilfred Bailey. And he was in the war from 1914 to 1918 at the front.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, he saw an awful lot. He was there. Actually, he was in the same trench for a bit with his younger brother and with the future Edward VIII, who apparently hero worshipped this man.
Oh, God.
There are letters where Edward VIII is sort of starstruck. Yeah. He's in the presence of this sort of real sort of warrior. He was in the Grenadier Guards, and he was about 6'5".
Oh, they're tall, aren't they, these people?
The Baileys are very, very tall. So he did this. The unfortunate thing, of course, is that only won the DSO. He was injured twice in the same day. He attacked a German trench, got injured, and then shook off the injury and basically did it again. An extraordinary man. He became a major of the Grenadier Guards at the age of 25.
Gosh.
Mentioned in dispatches, I think, 6 or 7 times. But his brother Gerald, who was with him in the trenches, was killed by a bomb in 1915.
Oh.
His other brother Bernard was killed on HMS Defence at the Battle of Jutland.
Oh.
But he was the last son, the last Bailey son surviving. And Dulcie, of course, his sister, was doing her thing. So that's a terrible thing. And it really did leave a massive mark on his father and mother, but his father in particular. So when the war ends, the father comes back home and he starts becoming ill in the 1920s. Let's have a photo of them both together. There we are. There's the old boy. Oh. Yeah. And there's Wilfred. So again, very tall men, both of them. If he's 6'5", he's not that far off. He's got to be over 6'2" in his pomp, Jonah. And what happens is he starts he thinks in 1921, he decides he's going to close Glanusk Park to live in a cottage and fish at Bilth Wells.
Oh, gosh.
That was his plan.
Yeah.
I just want to go and live in a fishing cottage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big fishing cottage he has
built.
Quite,
yeah. There's not a cottage as we would think of it. No.
He is Lord Glanusk. He is Jonah. Yeah. So he does that, and he allows, his son, Wilfred, to sort of take over little bits of the estate. And then in 1923, he transfers the entire estate to Wilfred. Now, this is good thinking because of possible death duties. Clearly, Jonah thinks he's on really borrowed time here.
Yeah.
He's got heart disease. He basically, whenever he goes to these functions, he's in physical pain as he's doing them.
Oh, man.
And he's really suffering quite a bit. Yeah. So he gives the whole estate over to his surviving son, Wilfred. Actually, he said that, and he was too ill to attend a meeting of the Central Landowners Association. He said, I'm sorry, I'm too ill, but if I was there, I would be there under false pretenses, because basically I now only own a fishing cottage and 3 acres. I own an allotment, basically. I'm not really a landed proprietor anymore. Yeah. But he called his pet baby, there's something he really wanted in honor of his 2 lost sons.
Yeah.
That was the Crickhowell War Memorial Hospital. And Jonah was fundraising through the pain constantly for years for this thing. And doing it, he wouldn't give up. Almost you want to think it's the one thing keeping him alive.
Yeah.
Now he's still got that goal. And so he keeps going for this. He goes to the Buckland Fete where he shakes cocktails like an American to make funds. Someone said, someone bought a cocktail from Lord Glanusk for £1.
Yeah.
So I think that Jonah himself started the rumour that someone had paid £100 for one of his cocktails to bump up the prices. So he's a very likeable character, this man. And he wants this war memorial hospital so badly for his sons. And finally, they do make it. The night before in 1920, it's January the 10th, 1928. And he says excitedly, it's my big day tomorrow. Yeah. My big day tomorrow. He'd been in a nursing home. And he said, I would not have gone in this nursing home if I knew I wasn't allowed to do any work.
Oh, gosh.
He was out of the nursing home for this. It was his big day tomorrow. The opening, and there he is. He's standing at the opening of the Crickhowell War Memorial Hospital, his pet baby. And he stands up And he says he was a Freemason, by the way. The reason I say this, and his father was a
Yeah.
Freemason, because of the choice of words. In
Yeah.
humble gratitude, I thank Almighty God, the architect of the universe.
Oh,
A
yes.
bit Masonic, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
That he has permitted me to live to see this day. It is a great day for all of us.
Hmm.
A few sentences later, he staggered back, stopping his speech. He
Oh,
gripped the chair and turning to the Bishop of Swansea and Brecon whispered, "Just hold me up, please."
oh gosh.
The next moment, he collapsed into the chair with his right hand on his heart. Well, this is just literally
Yeah.
seconds after this. A stretcher arrived, and ironically, he became the first patient for the hospital.
Oh gosh.
They wheeled him into
Yeah.
his hospital. I think he may have told Wilfred, he said, "Look, if anything happens, keep going. It's got to be
Yeah.
open." So Wilfred continued, and they opened the hospital, and then someone came and said, "I have very bad, very sad news, and that Lord Glanusk has passed away."
Oh,
He
good
died
Lord.
8 minutes after he collapsed, and about 9 minutes after saying, "Thank God I lived this
Yeah.
long."
Oh gosh.
Oh, dear me,
Oh,
that was
dear
the
me.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What an end.
What an end. But he did make it. He did get
Yeah.
it. And that hospital is still open to this day and still doing good work in
Oh,
Crickhowell. So
well, that's
Jonah
yeah.
Glanusk's
Yeah.
legacy is as strong as ever.
Yeah.
Um, and he says in his will, he left 2 grand for the hospital, £1,000 for the Brecon County Hospital. He wanted a grave at Penmeath, but he didn't want to go in the family vault. He
Oh.
wanted a more modest grave outside. He wanted a quiet funeral, and he insisted, unusually for this time, no mourning clothes.
Oh yeah. That is odd.
It's quite an unusual
I
thing.
think people had had enough of it after the First World
Ah,
War.
yeah. Too
I
much death
think.
after the war, do you think?
Yeah, my grandmother was alive during that period, and she hated black, and she refused to have black at her own funeral. And so when she died 1984, we never
How
wore black for her
interesting.
because she didn't want it. It's interesting, isn't it? I think it's a post First War thing. I think.
Oh, how fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I think he was only about 65 himself, 63, 64, 65. Um, and anyway, so he wanted a relatively modest funeral. And there he is using a farm wagon as a hearse, which is what he wanted.
Oh God.
Because he heads through. The Boy Scouts, of course, were there supporting him, and a lot of the soldiers and things like that. But his will is very interesting because he actually leaves a little message in it for his heir. And the
Oh,
message says, "I hope that my heir will find the estates and finances satisfactory and will realize that I have always tried to play the game. And I hope that he will have as happy a life as I have had and will, as I have tried to do, keep Breconshire to the fore in every way." And
oh,
that was his last sort of
yeah.
request. And here we have the Wilfred as the third Lord Glanusk
Mm,
with his wife here. And his wife, Vera, as they called her. Her name was Victoria Mary and lots of names, but she
yeah.
was known as Vera Dugdale. And basically, she was from very good stock. Her parents were well in at court. They actually were allowed to live by King George V at Royal Lodge in Great Windsor Park, which today is Prince Andrew's home.
Oh, blimey.
So they're very well connected. She looks
Yeah.
coolly elegant there, very coolly elegant. Too cool by half. Because in 1933, she left Wilfred and they got a divorce in 1938.
Oh, blimey.
So pretty cool. It's hard to know, and it's not really our business of why
No.
they got divorced. But Wilfred said at the time, and it was said in the courts, that it was because of this place. She
Oh,
didn't like
really?
Glanusk Park, no.
Oh, gosh.
Wilfred said, "We got along perfectly well until 1925, when my father gave it all over
Yeah.
to us, and she hated living there. And from that moment on, it got worse and worse and worse.
Oh, no.
And so, I mean, there might have been something else in it, of course. I can't imagine people. I mean, it's real first world problems, that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's so this terrible mansion of my husband's.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I go on.
Yeah.
Yes, Vera Dugdale. So they got divorced in 1938. He did remarry. He did remarry a Margaret known as Peggy Shoebridge, soldier's daughter. And Peggy was the one that said about Sir Joseph Bailey being, slightly brutish and all of that sort of
Oh
thing.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So what happens? Well, World War II happens. They spend most of their time, they closed Glanusk Park and spent most of their time at Penmearth. And Penmearth did have about 4 bedrooms, but they rebuilt it. By the time they finished rebuilding it, it had 14 bedrooms and 13
Yeah.
bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you think they go to the old Dower House, they
Yeah.
changed the Dower House.
Yeah. They've just did a little extension, you know.
Just
Yeah.
a little extension, yes, nothing too much. During the war, he was Wilfred, and again, they're all kind of Lord Lieutenant of Brecconshire and all of that sort of thing. They're really in there. Lieutenant Colonel in the Welsh Guards from 1939 to 1942. Then he was made Colonel at General HQ Home Force with the Auxiliary. That is touching on Churchill's secret army.
Oh,
He
interesting.
was there. If we get invaded, Lord Glanusk.
Yeah.
And Lord Glanusk came in there and he was mocked ever so slightly by turning up in a Rolls Royce and getting cosy and
Yeah.
immediately sending for his cellar.
Like,
And people do mock him for that, but he did make things better. And they do
yeah.
forget this is one hard individual. This is one man that
Yeah.
went through 4 years in the trenches in the Great War. But he had a heart attack during the war. Had a
Oh,
heart attack as a young man. So he had to retire from sort of all military duty. And it really is quite sad about Glanusk Park because the military requisitioned it. And there was a little fire there.
oh,
And then there was another little fire there. Until after the war, it was in a shocking state. Here's
Yeah.
Wilfred, by the way. Here
Yeah.
he is with the famous three-wheeler of the
Oh,
estate. Richard Hammond. It still exists.
that does
Richard
it?
Hammond's little workshop restored it recently.
Oh gosh.
This sort of three-wheeler.
Yeah.
Wilfred eventually died, or I say eventually, he died 20 years to the day that his father collapsed of a heart attack opening the hospital.
Oh gosh.
Had a massive heart attack and died. 20 years to the day.
Oh,
That he
blimey.
lost
Yeah,
his
it's
father.
interesting. Yeah.
Oh, and Dulcie. Yes, I've got to tell you, Dulcie, who was the remaining girl.
Yeah.
And Dulcie, I said fishing is a massive thing, okay? Fishing's a massive thing. But Dulcie, as you can see here, was actually a world record holder.
Oh
She's an
gosh.
incredible angler. She won the ladies' world record for casting, for fly fishing. She cast something like 40 yards, and then she
Yeah.
beat that record at 41 yards. So there she is. Dulcie was, I guess fishing is in your blood if you live so close to the beautiful River Usk and you
Yeah,
grow
yeah,
up there.
yeah.
And it is a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
But full of troops and sometimes not, two fires. I mean, there was a slight issue. And look at the state of it after the war.
Yeah.
The roof.
Yeah. It's a lot of these places to get a bit knocked around. Yeah, well, Rupera Castle went up in flames, and then that was the end of Rupera Castle during the war when that was requisitioned.
I'm afraid it was. Asked later what they could possibly do about it. So they're living
Yeah.
at Penmearth. Oh, the good thing was, though, Wilfred did have a single child with his new wife, Peggy, and that was a daughter. And that daughter, for those of you who know this area, was Sian Legge-Bourke, who's still alive and very prominent in the area to this day. Sian Legge-Bourke, and the estate was not entailed. And that was the wonderful thing. Now, what entailed means is,
Yeah, I'm going to say what
you
does
get the
that mean?
title, you get the estate. Well, it wasn't entailed. So the title, Lord Glanusk, continues to this day, but no longer, I wouldn't say doesn't interest us, but doesn't concern us.
No,
Because
it's
it
not
went to a cousin, went to a cousin who hopped off and lived somewhere else.
Oh, right.
Whereas little Sian Legge-Bourke, with her mother, took over the estate.
Oh, right. Oh, interesting.
And what are you going to do with Glanusk Park? Well, as it was said, as Sian Legge-Bourke has said, well, my mother blew it up.
Oh, oh no. Oh, no. Oh, not another one. How many of these houses have we seen in this area who are simply detonated off the face of the earth eventually? Oh, my
Quite a few,
God.
admittedly. Quite a few.
Look at those lovely turrets that I'm talking about at the beginning. They're just still standing out of the smoke. Oh, good God.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. Apparently everybody knew that it was going to happen, so they gathered around, and the explosions were bigger than they thought, and apparently people were dodging stone flying at them with the explosion. Asked what happened to it, the Baileys basically say, well, we know this much. There's a lot of very good bus shelters built in the area of fine Glanusk stone.
Oh, good Lord.
The stone was used. And again, people come up today into Glanusk and they look at the park and they say, oh, where's the stately home?
Yeah.
And they have to say,
Yeah.
well, we kind of blew it up in 1952.
Hey,
But as you said, Goff, Llanwern went the same way, didn't
yeah,
it?
well,
Lady
yeah,
Mackworth
yeah.
blew up, Lady Rhondda, sorry, blew
Blew
up,
that up. Yeah.
blew that up. So, yeah. So they went to Penmearth, as you can see there, which is still there, but a lot bigger than it looks
Yeah.
there. And this is Sian Legge-Bourke. When she grew up, she married Captain Legge-Bourke. You can see there, Captain William Legge-Bourke. And they basically attempted to run the estate. But she said she did an awful lot in the
Yeah.
60s and 70s, 70s and 80s in particular, because she said my family had fleets of gardeners, and at one point it was just her and a single gardener.
Oh, gosh.
So Sian, I mean, this was really sort of hands-on.
Yeah.
And as I said, she followed in her father and grandfather's footsteps when she was made the equivalent of Lord Lieutenant of Brecconshire. She was made Lord Lieutenant of Powys.
Oh, right.
And
Oh,
she's did an awful lot of work on the estate and lands and charitable work, and she was made a dame for it.
Hmm.
The Legge-Bourke name is also sort of remembered for her daughter Tiggy Legge-Bourke.
oh, do you know, I was wondering how I knew that, the Legge-Bourke part. Oh, right.
Yeah, Tiggy Legge-Bourke, now Tiggy Pettifer, can
Yeah.
be seen here from one of her earlier jobs when she was nanny to Princes William and Harry. She
Yeah.
was treated absolutely appallingly by the media and quite a few other people as well. We'll just put it at that.
Yeah.
Anyway, she bounced back from it, and she now apparently she ran a B&B in the area relatively recently called the Tiggy Experience. But like, I don't know what the Tiggy Experience involved, maybe someone will let us know. But like her great aunt Dulcie, she was also a superb angler
Oh,
and
no.
gave lessons in fishing.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing the way the genetics work? So she
Yeah.
was superb. As for today, her brother, who was in the Welsh Guards, not the Grenadier Guards, but I'm sure the Baileys forgave him for that, Captain Harry Legge-Bourke, he currently runs the estate.
All
He's
right.
not still alive.
Yeah.
He still runs the estate. They had to diversify. So you go there now, you can stay in Penmearth House, you
Yeah.
can stay in the many lodges,
Yeah.
there are weddings, fishing, you
Yeah.
name it, you get to do it. They have got 200 species of oak on their estate.
Good Lord.
I didn't know there were 200 species of oak.
No, I didn't know. Good Lord.
So it's all about now making the estate work. They still own an awful lot of land. It's making the estate work in the current day, which is
Yeah.
a heck of a challenge, isn't it,
Well, yeah.
for anyone? So we've got this is Penmearth, so it's a bit bigger than it
Oh, yeah.
looks. All very nice, all very pleasant and beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it really is a lovely part. We say this on every podcast. There's a reason aristocrats build in these places, because they're often absolutely gorgeous parts of the world.
Yeah.
You can stay in Tower Lodge if you like.
All right.
So that's available. There used to be a guy who lived there, I think in the 50s and maybe 60s, Jack George, who was called Jack the Miller because he used to live at the mill before he moved there.
Yeah.
And you know, in PG Woodhouse, you get Bertie Wooster calling people my old sock or my old thing or my old horse. Well, I've never heard this. He used to go up to people and say, "How are you, you old wasp?"
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a sting in that, really, isn't it? But if you ever asked him, if you ever asked Jack the Miller, "How are you?" he always had the same answer.
Yeah.
"Oh, how are you, Jack? I'm like a bird." I don't know. I don't know if there's some sort of wisdom there that I'm missing.
I'm
He's like a bird.
I would.
And this is actually the floor print, you could say, of the mansion. The mansion is up here.
Oh, yes, there's still a few flights of stairs left.
And it is quite a slope. During the Green Man Festival, I think one of the stages is up here.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, the Green Man Festival is another thing the music and arts festival are put on there. The stables survive. The stables are there. This bit here is where I think the Garden of Eden was.
Oh, yeah.
because there was a fountain there.
I was going to
Oh,
say,
yes,
that looks like the remains of a fountain at that circular patch, doesn't it?
yeah. Oh, this is a 1970s creation by Peggy. She became
Yeah,
Viscountess de Lisle. She married again, but she
yeah,
lived on. She got out of Penmearth and she lived in her own place here, a
yeah,
lodge which was built on almost the footprint of the old mansion that she
yeah,
would have, that she would certainly have known about. So
mm,
it's all very pretty, isn't it? I think the
yeah,
wall garden here,
yeah,
maybe one. They had a kitchen garden as well, but
yeah. That looked sort of kitchen garden shaped to me, that one.
yeah. So there we are.
Well, well, well.
Quite an
How
interesting place.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, well,
yeah.
well.
I do. There's one last thing to say, and then this is also a lesson. Don't entail your estate. I mean, I
Yeah,
know you want your family, but sometimes that family might be a distant cousin and not your own daughter.
yeah, yeah,
If you can get away with it, don't entail the estate. It's
yeah.
not the safeguard you think it is.
No, exactly. Yeah, no.
But we've got one to finish off. We've got one of Jonah's. He sent Christmas cards and did Christmas messages from India as well.
Oh, dear.
One of his poems has survived. And
Oh,
it gives
yes.
the sort of spirit of the man. So this is, and he'd send it in a Christmas card and it'd be in his
Yeah.
hand, you know. A Christmas card from a real old pal who is trying to see it through. And the best of all Christmas wishes now is sending along to you. Cheerio, my lads, though the world's gone mad. There's a time that the war must end. And though not yet fit, we're doing our bit. So are you, my dear old friend. The time will come when our work is done. If we're crippled or blind or lame, by the grasp of the hand, we shall understand that we've both of us played the game.
Oh, God.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So there we are. So
Certainly.
next time you're driving near Abergavenny and you see the 19th century walls and you wonder what that park
Yeah,
is, that's Glanusk Park.
yeah. Wow, wow, wow. Very cool. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but yeah. So there we go. So we have done the Legge-Bourkes and we've done Lord Glanusk, another important estate in the area. So now
Yeah.
we're not sure where we're going next, Goff,
No.
but we
No.
shall have a think.
Well, we have plans. We have plans. Lots of you, bless your tiny hearts, send us suggestions, and if we can, we will. We got a few little anthology type things. So sometimes, obviously, you got to have enough for a whole episode. So Paul's got a few anthology things lining up. So keep watching. If you've sent us something that hasn't been big enough for a full episode, you may pop into an anthology sometime soon.
I hope so. Well, thank you all very much, Goff,
A
and
joy as
thank you
always,
for
Mr. Busby.
watching.
Yes.
And we'll see everyone soon.
Yep.
Bye bye.
Bye.